Welcome to In the Line of Fire with Saraj. Real leaders, real talks, real insights. Every leader must unlearn.
What worked yesterday may not work today.
Gen Z is misunderstood, yes or no?
Yes.
One expectation Gen Z will never compromise on.
I would say authenticity.
One thing Gen Z teaches leaders.
Have a contrarian view.
Will Gen Z redefine leadership, yes or no?
They are already defining.
Good. So, what kills culture faster, the systems or the leaders?
Leaders.
Today is strategic or operational?
It has to be strategic.
I often feel people live for their own reasons. People live for manager. People live for the culture also. It is not just one-dimensional.
Very often people talk about fairness. If they exhibit fairness in their behavior, I can't expect people to say, okay, we are a fair organization, but then I start favoring my own people. Then people lose respect in you as a leader.
Today, I'm delighted to have Rajorshi Ganguli on the show. He has spent 30 years in HR leadership, managed talent across 20 countries, and today leads the global HR function for the pharmaceutical company Alkem, managed large complex HR responsibilities in India, USA, UK, Russia, Germany, Mexico, Latin America, Australia, South Africa, and others. And he is also the author of Winning with the Gen Z, which is going to be the key focus of this discussion. What would be your message to the CEOs and CXOs, their personal contribution towards building that culture?
I think their contribution is immense, Saraj, and culture is set right from the top. And how do you really percolate it down?
30 years in HR and holding senior positions and having served across geos and across industries. How do you see HR initial 10 years of your experience vis-a-vis the recent 10 years of your experience?
Actually, it's a sea change in the way HR was and is now.
2-3 qualities that really helps any leader to build a team positively.
First of all, a clarity and a direction. I think that you must bring, because that clarity at work, where are we heading, what's the agenda? If you are not seen to be a person they look up to even technically or functionally, you will lose that respect. They should look up to you as somebody that you bring value to their life.
Welcome to In the Line of Fire with Saraj. Real leaders, real talks, real insights. This conversation is about tapping into the gold mine of knowledge and lived experience of our senior executives. As we see that there's a lot of AI transformation and the new age work continues to reshape the business, there seems to be a little bit of stress all across, and leadership definitely demands a lot of resilience and adaptability and empathy, and how the future leader should look like. And with that context, we have this conversation with the CEOs and CXOs. Today, I'm delighted to have Rajorshi Ganguli on the show. He has spent 30 years in HR leadership, managed talent across 20 countries, and today leads the global HR function for the pharmaceutical company Alkem, managed large complex HR responsibilities in India, USA, UK, Russia, Germany, Mexico, Latin America, Australia, South Africa, and others. And he is also the author of Winning with the Gen Z, which is going to be the key focus of this discussion. I would request all of you to stay tuned till the end of this conversation, because there will be a lot of discovery. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I worked for you for some time, and that was one of the best experiences. We will get into a little bit of context setting, starting with what brought you to HR.
HR was just a mere fluke, Saraj, and I never thought I would ever be a HR professional in my life. Actually, I was a science student. I used to love science. Like those days, choices were very limited: science, engineering, medical. I never thought I would do engineering or medical for sure. So for me, science was the option. I was very good in mathematics and physics all along. Somehow during my college days, I also took geology as a subject. And then I liked geology, and I was actually thinking I'll become a geologist. And there's a profession called geologist. It's a very different world altogether. But sometimes luck takes a turn for you, and plan actually doesn't happen, and that becomes your career. So in my case, it was exactly the same thing. Some of my friends were preparing for management education. You have to take some entrance tests, so you do some coaching, etc. So few of my close friends, they said, why don't you also appear for entrance exam for MBA? You will be surprised, even I never knew those days what is MBA.
Oh my God.
After studying MBA, what exactly you do? Because for me, life was science. You can become a mathematician or a physicist. I knew what a geologist would do, but I had no understanding. After studying MBA, what would you do? Because I at the best knew people work in banks, people work in government. I never had the concept of what is a MBA. So I never even attempted. But since they started persuading, I said, doesn't matter. I mean, it is in the same city. So let me attempt. So I filled up one of the entrance exams. One of the days when the test was there, I went and I got a call from this institute called Xavier Institute of Social Service, which happened to be in Ranchi, and they were well known for HR. After interview rounds, I got selected. And then after getting a call from this institute, I was actually in a dilemma whether to even take admission, because I never knew what is this all about. Why should I study? But then I started doing homework. What is this all about? Is it really a career? It will give me a job. My parents were also not clear about MBA, so they discouraged me because I came from a business family. And even those who were working in my family, they were all doing the traditional jobs in banks, insurance, known sector of government and all. So actually I was discouraged. Forget all this MBA, it doesn't give you a career. You stick to your geology, because I had taken admission in masters also. But then somewhere something kept telling me internally, why don't I see what is this? I can always discontinue if I don't like. So I was still in a dilemma whether to take admission. In fact, I took admission on the last day, almost in the last hour, till that admission period was valid. That's why my roll number was 59 in a class of 62, 63, because those days roll numbers were given as per the serial order you took admission. So that is how I came to HR and started attending classes I liked, and then that's how it is. Then I discarded my geology dream, and then over a period of time I moved into HR. That's the real answer. It was not by design. It happened, I fell in love, and then I never looked backwards. That's how it has been. And that was the only entrance exam, Saraj, I have ever taken for getting admitted to a MBA college. That was the first and the last.
So did you regret your decision?
I don't regret. In fact, I feel that was one of the best things probably I have ever done in my life. There's no regret, no looking back.
30 years in HR and holding senior positions and having served across geos and across industries also, I see a lot of industries. How do you see HR initial 10 years of your experience vis-a-vis the recent 10 years of your experience?
Actually, it's a sea change in the way HR was and is now. If I look at the first 10 years versus now, HR is a more strategic function now, where you are expected to drive along with the CEO, CFO, and other CXOs, the strategy of the company. Talk about talent, you talk about culture, you talk about cost and productivity, performance, employee engagement, technology, transformation, organization design. And of course, people development. You have to be in multiple areas. And that's the shift which has happened in 30 years. In fact, one of the blogs I have written on my LinkedIn, I think about a year back, see that I have written even how the transformation has happened. So the kind of subjects we were dealing with then, or the topics we were dealing with then being in HR versus now, of course those are also there. You have to pay salaries, you have to take care of employee grievance, you have to do a bit of administration, everything. But the world has moved beyond that. Those are basics now. But if you were to be really successful in the world of HR, you have to see how are you creating impact in the organization. I think that's the change which has happened.
I think our generation has gone through that that very tough change process. And we have evolved. We have seen transformation and changes like never before. So uh, we will slightly go back to your initial days and talk about how was your childhood like?
So I grew up in a place called Ranchi. I hope most of you know where Ranchi is.
Yeah,
Today
very
it's
well,
the
yes.
capital of Jharkhand. Those days it was part of the integrated Bihar, and our family was there for many years. So we were kind of third generation in that city. So my childhood was like any normal child, very middle class, and I grew up with a lot of my grandfather, mother, grandfather, some cousins. We used to all stay together in one ancestral home, and of course, with a lot of typical friends, neighborhood friends. You play most of the day. Nowadays, I don't see kids going out and playing, but if I am at home, I used to be outside. My mother used to literally pull me by my ears also sometimes to go and come back home and sit and study. So it was a very normal child. And of course, I, being the only child of my parents who are no more, I used to always get that love and affection. And I think by and large, I was a bit disciplined child, and but any normal child that would grow in a small city. So we had, playground, gardens, everything that you ask for, small city can offer you, with a bunch of good friends who remain with you till we are close even now. So I think that's how my childhood grew, in between friends, cousins, grandparents, parents, and everyone.
So when you look at 20, 25 years back and now, what are some of the key habits or disciplines that is still stays with you that helped you be where you are today?
I think I'm very fortunate that I was born in a very small city and middle class background. Not that I'm saying if you are not born, you may not be fortunate. But I think that helped me to be grounded. I think in my childhood, if I look at, we were expected to be independent quite early in our life, when you are in class 5, 6 onwards. So you learn a lot of life basics at that point in time. So being grounded, being humble. I come from a family who has a lot of good values, being disciplined, speak the truth even in front of various adversaries that you might face, have the guts to speak out. I think these qualities, when I look back, and of course, thanks to my parents and my family members, I think those have lived with me. And how also you don't forget simplicity in your life. So I think I also come from a family who do not show off, though we could those days, but we never showed off. So I think remain grounded, being humble, respect others. I think those qualities would probably have remained with me.
Very inspirational and very, very profound. So today, how does your day look like? I mean, beyond the office work, how you carry yourself?
Okay. So beyond work, I think now we all live largely between Mumbai and Hyderabad, because of my stint in my earlier company. I loved Hyderabad, so we have not left that city, though my work years have been largely between Hyderabad and Mumbai. This is my second stint in Mumbai. So my typical days, of course, now I live with my family. We are a family of 5, my wife and my 3 kids, my elder daughter, and then we have twins, a son and a daughter. So they are all grown up, stay together here in Mumbai. Of course, my younger daughter is still studying, so she sometimes have to go back and live in a hostel. She's in the final year. She would again join us very soon. So beyond work, my life is I try to take care of my health, bit of a walk. I try to be at least as regular as possible. A bit of free hand exercises in the morning if I get time again. Otherwise, I love reading, writing. I won't say I watch TV a lot. I used to, but that habit has somehow gone. Other than that, in my free time, when I'm at home, I like to cook, and typically on Saturdays and Sundays when I get time, I cook different dishes. Not that I cook the whole thing, but at least few dishes, because that's something gives me a lot of energy. I feel very involved and I feel good when, people relish whatever I make. So I help, I spend some time in the kitchen and free my wife. So that's how my day goes on. And sometimes, when you're not at work, sometimes I love to also travel with my family, but those are special vacations and also we try to take out some time in a year to go out as a family wherever we can.
In fact, you mentioned about the weekend cooking. In some of my conversation with senior leaders, during my coaching conversation especially, I asked them, do you cook? And some of them are like taken aback. I tell them that is one of the greatest de-stressor for you. If you do that, there'll be fun in the family if you start doing it. Over the period of time, you will learn this skill also. Tell us, if I go back to your family and ask about you, what would they tell us?
You have to ask them only. I don't want to hazard a guess. My kids would say I'm very strict also. I like to enforce some discipline at home, but I think they might say also at that same time, I give them a free hand.
How have they contributed to who you are?
Of course, family contributes a lot. I told you during my foundation years, because my parents have contributed a lot. A lot of values I have picked up both from my father and my mother. And I think those will stay with me till ever. As you grow, your spouse, children, and I think you learn from each one of them. And in some way, they also complement you. Like I am not something, but maybe my wife bring those skills. And though we complement each other. Likewise, my kids, they are from the Gen Z generation. So I also watch them. I learn a lot of things. Of course, we have our own point of view, point of disagreement, everything. But at the end of the day, I think I'm sure we learn from each other. They also learn observing us.
Do you think a lot of these family values that we carry impacts a lot when we work in the organization?
It's a wonderful question, Saraj. My personal belief is it does. In my case, if I look back some of the things which I bring to work and people even give me these kind of informal feedback, I think somewhere it still comes back from my roots. I think how you develop as a professional, I think it has a bearing on your roots. You can't dissociate these two things. You cannot be a very different person at work and a very different person outside work. There could be some differences in your behavior, but the basics, values, principles, ethos, thought process that you carry and how you carry yourself, it is a reflection of your upbringing. I strongly believe that.
And this comes out very prominently every time we have conversation with senior leaders. And in fact, when I look at myself, I also operate the way my parents have taught, what not to do, what to do. You have recently written about functional relationship at work and the hidden cost of busy leadership. I'm trying to transition into the team mastery zone. What was the thought there? What forced you to write that?
So, I never thought I do write very regularly, Saraj. You might have seen it. Beyond my book, my articles keep getting published very often, and at least the last 3-4 years. I never write after too much planning. That's not my style. Writing or the content suddenly starts, wandering in my mind. Then I start crystallizing. Whatever topic I pick up basis my own experience and what I see around me. And I normally don't write anything which is very theoretical. Why I wrote this recent article of hidden costs of busy leadership. I see this now very prominent in the corporate sector across. And when I talk to my friends or colleagues or even managers, or I do a lot of interviews. I take a lot of senior level interviews because that's my profession. I see this behavior is it's very, very prevalent in the corporate sector today, where as leaders, you have become very functional. You have become very process led. You are always running for a target, you are running for deadlines, you're running for analytics, you're running for MIS. And then that human relation is somewhere becoming very transactional. When I saw this, I thought, why don't I take this up as a topic and just at least speak out about it so that at least people become conscious, and whoever likes, if they want to bring even little change in their behavior, they can do that. Incidentally, a lot of people reached out to me after this article was written just a couple of weeks back. Several founders and managing directors, not from my industry, but they reached out and separately wrote to me that this is something, we all realize we are doing this. We have made the workplace very mechanical.
True.
I think maybe if I have touched their heart and conscience, I feel blessed.
Yeah, thank you so much for writing. In fact, I go through most of them, almost all of them, and you have substantially contributed to the community. We see that we are connected much more than we were connected in the past, but we are connected only digitally. How much we are connected emotionally, that matters more. And that is when the trust comes, when it comes to team. And one of the responsibilities that leaders have towards team is to create a cohesive, integrated team. What will be your message to the emerging leaders when it comes to leading teams?
I think you already alluded to that, and I wrote in my article, you're right, we are much more connected than what we were 10, 15, and forget 30 years back. No, but even though we are all connected in a second by second, but I think, we have forgotten how we connect with people. I'm not saying everyone has forgotten, but how do we connect with people without any agenda? Now, gone are those days of agenda-less interactions. I remember my first boss in the corporate sector, whom I still connect with. We used to have a lot of agenda-less discussion, and that created that bonding. And that bonding, I worked with him 32 years back. I just met him even few months back when I had gone to Coimbatore. We still share that relationship. That relationship is missing. It's a very mercenary world. It's a very cut and dry world. Your relationship is forcibly imposed on you till you have that work interaction. After that, very often you forget. Very few managers or very few people leave that imprint on you where that relation will last forever. So I think my message to managers and senior leaders is spend time with your team. Listen to them. Every interaction cannot be a agenda-based interaction. Try some non-agenda just to know people, and don't do that also artificially. It has to come spontaneously. You have to be authentic. I think if you master that, I think then it will also show up in a good way at work also. Of course, we are all pressed with deadlines, outcomes, but the human interaction is somewhere even little beyond that. That one has to understand. And that's the role of the manager. Manager is not just managing work. You also manage people. That part you cannot forget.
During my conversation with Robert Boards, I asked him a question, what is the difference between family and a team? He said, no difference.
Correct.
It's a group dynamic in both the situations. So I think it's on the manager side, as you rightly said. Do you want to recall the best team you worked with? I know this will be injustice because you would have worked with many, many teams, but anything you want to share about the teams, their contribution, or if you recall anything?
I think I don't want to single out anyone, but
True.
I always say I was always blessed with good teams, because if you are alluding to where I was a team leader, I think after my Bharat Petroleum stint, when I joined Dr. Reddy's, that's the first time I started leading a team, and I think I played the role of a people manager first time. I think I always had wonderful team. I mean, of course, team members kept changing over a period of time. They led team based in India, other countries. I don't know how they would think about me, but I have always tried to kind of keep that relationship. I tried to mentor people. Most of my team members have even kept touch with me even now, though many of them would have worked briefly with me for few months or a year. I think most of my team members are still connected with me, though we all have changed companies or time zones or countries. That's I feel very good about it.
So 2-3 qualities that really helps any leader to build a team positively.
I think that team always looks forward to a team leader for first of all, a clarity. and a direction. I think that you must bring, because that clarity at work, where are we heading, what's the agenda, I think that's the work part. I think you have to bring that to work. They should see in you somebody who they can look up to. If you are not seen to be a person they look up to, even technically or functionally, you will lose that respect. That's my feeling. Whichever function you are in, you have to also bring that domain expertise so that your team learns from you. They, of course, you also learn from your team. That's given, but they should look up to you as somebody that you bring value to their life so that they also learn. See, we have also learned our profession by observing someone, working with someone, learning from someone, and how we have done that because they brought those expertise which we don't have. So as a team, you must have that, I feel, the domain expertise, whichever function you are in. The second one is you should help, de-bottleneck things which they face on a day-to-day basis. I'm not saying you should do their work, but you should be somebody, they see that if I get stuck, he or she is around as my team leader to solve those things. If they don't see in you that respect goes away. I mean, otherwise we'll be just talking. We will not be, helping them to navigate through the corporate challenges. The third part I feel is that you should be listening to them, understand what's bothering them. I think that's very important. See, I'm also not good at certain things. Am I a team leader who kind of, spends too much of a fun time with my team? I may not be doing. I'm not that kind of a person, but I try to at least keep in touch with all my team members to know what's bothering them. So that, they develop that trust in you. They should not hesitate to come and discuss with the team leader things which are bothering them. If that hesitation is there, which means you don't have that connect. I think that those few things are fundamental. Of course, ethical values and all that goes without saying. So I think some of these things, Saraj, are very important for a team leader to be credible. If they see the team leader itself is not credible, you will not develop that kind of a relationship, whatever best you want to do.
These days, one of the very different question that I have started asking is, there's a lot of discussion on how leaders should operate. I have started asking questions. How should team behave with the leader? What are some of the behaviors of the team that would help the leader to come out pretty well? So there is some amount of responsibility towards the team also. Any thoughts on how team should come across to the leader?
So the times are changing. When we started our career, there was a certain kind of relationship which was expected between a team leader and a team member. I think it was more of a bit of a teacher-student relationship because those days teachers had a certain aura, affect our teachers. But in the current context, and let's see from here on, I think the team should respect. If they start disrespecting the team leader for some, superficial reason, I think that's not good. That expected the team to listen and follow the team leader, assuming that the team leader is doing all the right things. The second is, I think, both between team leader and team member, what's important and what we see increasingly is now they look at each other like a colleague, not as a typical boss and a subordinate relationship. In fact, we don't want to use the term boss and subordinate. And as you deal more and more with Gen Z, you'll find that that's not working. They should see each one as their ally at work. And I learn a lot of things from my team. Team learns a lot of things from us. So how you sustain that relationship, I think. But at the end, if the team leader brings that kind of expertise to the table, I would assume the team members would always look up to a team leader. What happens is when the team leader is positionally imposed on someone without bringing that expertise, the values, then the team leader starts losing respect.
As far as I know, you have created very conducive culture where team members feel very comfortable to talk to you. In my case also, I reached out to you after such a long time and you were so responsive and immediately said, yes, I can contribute if it is good for the people. Let me bring another angle. This is people discussion, so I'm becoming more and more interested in it. So one is the leadership side. Another is the team side, which we have discussed. And one last component I want you to highlight on the culture, which I think is the third pillar. Or if you look at the triangular process, it is the leader, it is the team, and it is the culture of the organization. What would be your message to the CEOs and CXOs, their personal contribution towards building that culture?
I think their contribution is immense, Saraj. And I think, we can all keep talking about culture, write nice things, talk about, but culture is set right from the top. And how do you really percolate it down? Because culture is how you feel. How do you feel the organization? How do you experience the organization, both formally and informally? And I think, right, the senior management, the CXOs, CEO, they all actually contribute a great deal to this. You can talk saying that, I'm very approachable, but if, let's say, the CEO doesn't give you time, or any of the CXOs doesn't give you time, they ask for 20 appointments to see you, then you are not an approachable organization. You can say that I am a listening organization, but you are not even willing to spare time with people. How can you be a listening organization? You can be saying that I am a very values-oriented organization, and if the people see the CEO or in the CXOs or your manager doing unethical job and getting away with it, how can you walk the talk then? So I personally feel culture is all about behavior and action, which you demonstrate from the top, which is not easy thing in the today's complicated world, the complex business environment. But whatever culture you want to set, the leadership has to walk the talk. They cannot talk something and walk somewhere else and then expect the rest of the organization to walk their talk.
Great insights. Because I often feel people leave for their own reasons. People leave for manager. People leave for the culture also. It is not just one-dimensional insight on that.
For example, very often people talk about fairness, which is very difficult also over a period of time to satisfy. But at least majority of the leaders, if they exhibit fairness in their behavior, I can't expect people to say, okay, we are a fair organization, but then I start favoring my own people, my own coterie, to make them get all the benefits, then people lose respect in you as a leader. So no matter whatever you say, culture is an outcome of the behavior and actions emanating from the top. And then people down the line, they start resonating with that.
I think personal liking is a psychological thing. You can get driven into that, but your ethics and your integrity, it stops you, and then you do justice to everyone in the team, irrespective of who they are. This is a big discussion. It can go for hours. So,
and I don't want to forget this. See, it comes every day to all of us in different ways. And how these small actions of day to day we exhibit and we carry out sets the trend. Culture is not something, it's a mega thing. It's a small day-to-day actions from everyone which culminates into how you set the culture.
Absolutely. And sometimes you don't realize that what you are doing is creating a negative impact on people while you're not realizing that you are creating a negative impact. How people perceive you is more important than how you perceive yourself. And that's where you have to make intentional efforts to bring the right culture. Well, thank you so much for that insight. What is your message for the top management?
Yeah, I think the top management would have to be increasingly aware of the next generations which are coming to work. How would people feel if we, disagree with something?
True.
But for Gen Zs, it's very common. They might like to just, in a meeting I have seen, they might like to just open and ask a question to a CEO, ask a question to a senior manager, or they may disagree to what you are saying. Now, a classical manager would not like it. How can you not agree? Who told you to show your dissent? But it is not dissent. It is that how they have been brought up, because they are expressing their views. So if this kind of cultural changes also you're not creating in your day-to-day environment, they would feel discontent. So, managers and senior managers or management would have to understand it, that this is a generation, and more so even the future generation would be looking at workplace with a more openness. And if we are not able to create that environment, then we may not be able to engage and retain. That's a reality.
So let's focus on the functional responsibility. What do you think HR and talent management and learning and development team should do?
Okay. From a functional responsibility, I think, see, Gen Zs are also, they come from a background where knowledge is all around them. Okay. The flip side is I've seen that, sometimes they lack the depth. So I think it is also the responsibility that the Gen Zs have to take is how they
I will come to Gen Z's questions. I'm trying to take the culture, the top management, then the HR responsibility.
So HR has to take this responsibility of orienting the organization. I think a continuous, I would say, awareness has to happen in every, let's say, leadership development program. And more so, they are paired with a first time manager or a second line manager. So, that section of the organization, I think we have to continuously make them aware how this generation expects, what do they expect. And I think, like, we have also taken this up in our own organization currently at Alkem, and where we continuously educate our managers that what are the do's and don'ts. And how you should take certain things as more natural. Having said that, everybody even knowingly may not change overnight, but the job of the HR learning development is to make people aware and even make the Gen Zs aware. What should they expect? What they should not expect, and therefore how do they also settle in comfortably in the organization? I think how they should look at organizations, and that's where also they have to help them settle in. So it's a two-way process.
Quick message for the managers. Then it comes to dealing with Gen Zs. We are in that segment.
Forget your classical way of managing the workforce. You are no more a boss. You are a mentor and a colleague. So drop that, mindset of that you are a boss.
Quick message for Gen Z.
The quick message for Gen Zs is that, there's a lot of things to learn from the organization also. So have that patience, create that impact also at work. Whatever is given to you, show your depth in executing and then move to the next one. That's how your learning would be better.
What has been one of the most surprising element in your research?
Okay, I think I would say two surprising things when I did my research in India, mostly because all my participants were from India, and across towns and cities, almost 300 towns and cities were covered where I drew my respondents from. I thought that, there would be some change in behavior between the so-called elite or metro towns versus the smaller towns in the findings. I did not see that, which also further proves that the world is more connected now. The second, I thought that, there would be some, probably in some parameters or dimensions of my research, there would be certain change between the genders of Gen Z, a male or a female would. I did not see that. So, which again alludes to a point that I think it's the common generic behavior from irrespective of where they come from or their background.
I also see a dimension. We talk about millennials, then we talk about Gen Z, and there is a new wave that will soon be in, that is the Gen Alpha after some times. So the millennials will have a different responsibilities and the Gen Z will have different responsibilities. So what will be your strong message for the organization looking at the next wave coming in?
Yeah, I think in my book also, towards the last chapter, I have spoken about it. And see, by the time Gen Alpha would start coming to the organization, most of the Gen Zs would be their managers. They would bring in
Interesting.
Yeah, obviously, that they would be, at least most of them would play probably the managerial role, managing that. They would also have some surprises. And the next generation would be probably much more different in their thought process. I have not researched about this generation, but maybe we will do at some time. But already the Gen Zs, when they start getting into managerial position, they will bring those changes, how they would like to manage the workplace. So I think the experience what the Gen Alpha would get would be probably far smoother, because in the last 10-15 years, the workplace has and the society has seen a lot of rapid changes in the way technology, communication has invaded our day-to-day work. So I'm sure Gen Zs would be more smarter managers. Hopefully so, I don't know.
Yeah.
And organizations would be also more receptive to a more flexible, work environment.
True. And with the AI coming in, technology coming in, transition happening, I think we always in HR talk about when you're giving feedback, focus on the goals, not on the persons. I think over the period of time, the people component where there could be a potential bias element today, I think that will get reduced over the period of time. And then it will be more process and technology oriented. Thank you so much for great insights. We'll get into the rapid fire now. There'll be some fun, so I will not give you much option. It'll be one word or true or false. This will be high energy, and sometimes I might ask you question to expand there. So best leaders are born or made?
I would say born.
One quality every leader must unlearn in today's context.
What worked yesterday may not work today.
Gen Z is misunderstood, yes or no?
Yes.
One expectation Gen Z will never compromise on.
I would say authenticity.
One thing Gen Z teaches leaders.
Have a contrarian view.
One thing Gen Z struggles with today.
Struggles, I would say, they always want the world to be a perfect place, which doesn't happen.
They might come back to you and ask questions. Will Gen Z redefine leadership? Yes or no?
They are already redefining.
Why do you say that?
Because the way they expect things at workplace. The classical boss and subordinate relationship needs to be redefined.
Very good. So what kills culture faster? The systems or the leaders?
Leaders.
Yeah. HR today is strategic or operational?
It has to be strategic.
AI in HR, a threat or an opportunity?
It's an opportunity.
More human or...
I somewhere picked it up. I somewhere picked it up. I don't know where. And that applies to all function HR. They say retire with AI or AI will retire you.
True. Okay, the next one is one skill that will never become outdated.
Humility.
Fantastic. One word that defines your journey.
I don't know. I think my journey, if you ask me, simplicity.
I think that is, to be simple is very difficult. To be complex is very easy. That's how we say. So we'll get into the next segment, which is more about organizational mastery. How do you see the future of work looks like?
So, if you look at the future of work, the work will be very demanding going forward. All sectors, because at the end of the day, business will have to be a commercial organization. So you'll have to make money. So the challenges which I see is that, the rate of change, which was earlier even limited to couple of years, it may happen several times in a year. So therefore, how leaders are able to be more flexible, more accommodative, have that courage of conviction. I think that's what the future of work, it will be very, very different. I mean, the rate of change and the shelf life or a half-life will be far lesser than what used to happen earlier. What even maybe I'm thinking now will happen in next 6-8 months, something will impact my work. Today, something happening in one part of the world affects your business. So all this is going to come into work. So therefore, the uncertainty, volatility, I think it's something as leaders and at work, we have to develop that kind of DNA to, deal with it and sustain with it and even navigate it and even finally win with that. If you are not, you'll be a loser.
So as a C-suite leader, senior executive, you have worked closely with the boards. What do you think boards should start discussing more often? A couple of new things.
I think, beyond the financial measure, boards should talk always more on creating a sustainable organization. I think the pressures of quarter on quarter is always evident. But sometimes too much focus on a quarter on quarter takes away the eyes of the future. And then you are suddenly hit by something from certain unexpected quarter and you unexpected dimension and you are taken off. So I think I'm sure the board has to always look at how do you create a sustainable organization which would weather all these kind of uncertainties. I think the second is technology, which I think no board can take their eyes off now, and all organizations, all industries are going to head by technology. The third is the speed. How you are creating an internal ecosystem where speed is in your culture, speed, agility, the leadership behavior. I think that's very important. Very often we find that the bottlenecks comes within the organization. Your strategy is right, your talent is right, but I think somewhere your the speed of response, decision, you create your internal bottlenecks. So how do you overcome that? Because if you are not able to overcome that, the organization would lag behind. Today, most organizations have similar resources, machine talent. Also, it's fine. It's there are differentiating talents, but how do you create that ecosystem where you bring that agility in the organization? You cannot be very slow organization. So I think the boards have to play a great role in creating a very agile organization. And how are they enabling organizations to do that? To my mind, I think that should be something one can look at it once.
That's a great message. We'll now go to the last segment, which is the young talent segment. This is for our freshers and people who are in the campuses at the moment. What would be your message to the people? How should they look up to the industry and how should they prepare?
I think, I think those who all are studying and would be entering the workforce soon, I think my first message would be utilize these years first to bring to develop a good fundamentals. Very often we take things for granted while we are at the campus. So I think I always say that first develop your fundamentals very thoroughly. Whichever function you are studying, whether you're studying science or engineering or any field, don't compromise on the domain mastery. I think that's fundamental. I mean, at the end of the day, I can be a great human being, but how do I bring the domain mastery? That's very important. Second is, today's generation, they are very good in communication, technology, they are not shy. They have access to everything, but start learning how do you deploy that to real life problem solving. When you come to organizations will expect you to solve real life problems. So how do you develop that skill of transferring the knowledge to solving the problem? I think that's what is. And the third is develop that social interaction. Today, most young people or this generation, the way society has changed, most of them have grown in nuclear families. Sometimes people have limited friends, but when you come to a workplace after you pass out from some place, some institution, you have to deal with people. And that's where it brings in a lot of dimensions, a lot of uncertainty. So how do you develop that social interaction to influence people, and get the work done? I think that will be very important. So domain mastery, social interaction, and the other one I said was how to get the work done, the problem solving ability.
One related question, your advice for the people who have joined the organization and how should they look at their first job, the first 90 days?
I think I would say have some patience. I think we understand that sometimes they are very impatient, but I think it's very important to have the patience. Understand how the organization function and not just at, your work for which you are hired. Because if you are able to understand how the demand generation to demand fulfillment happens in an organization, that's the management chain. And there, where are you able to add value? I think if that thing is very clear in the first 90 days or whatever time, they would start sensing a purpose, how their work is adding value. I would also say for everyone, for them to understand the end customer, manufacturing, R&D, sales to reach to customer, then they can understand where I'm really excited to contribute. I think these in the first 90 to 100 days, they should clearly understand and see whether this is something interesting for them.
What is your final message for the organization, for managers, for Gen Z? Any last thought you want to give?
I think I can only say that, the world is becoming much more complex, uncertain. The rate of change has become very fast. You'll be hit by a lot of unknown things in a shorter cycle than what it used to be earlier. And even with AI and all, we even don't know certain work processes, skills would be existing or would be irrelevant after a few years. I would say that be more flexible, more adaptive, be open, and don't hesitate to unlearn things fast. If you have made a mistake, don't feel shy of it. Quickly correct it. And I always say that, in the years to come, everyone should develop more than one skill to stay relevant, not just employment, to stay relevant so that you have alternate skills to fall back should something happen to your main skill. All of us should have 2 to 3 skills from which we can make our livelihood.
Thank you so much for great insights. You have spent so much of time. Thank you so much for your contribution. Truly appreciate. I'm sure this podcast is going to help from board to the CEOs, to the CXO, to the emerging leaders, and to the Gen Z in particular. And we touched the Zen Alpha as well. So, Dr. Rajorshi, thank you so much for this powerful conversation. As we say, real leaders, real talks, real insights, and real impact. The message for my audience is that this podcast will be available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Audible, and all the other podcast channels. Please tune in and listen to this podcast. There are so many insights that definitely helps. This is like a master class. Thank you once again for your time. Truly appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saraj. It was wonderful to interact with you as always. And thank you for inviting me to this wonderful podcast, Saraj Unleashing Talent. And I wish you all success going forward.
Thank you so much.